What's up, Sebastian and Kate? How y'all doing?
Good. How
Good.
are you doing, Bryce? So nice to finally meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well. Sorry this took us such a long time to kind of get together, but excited to
No,
be
we really
talking with you both.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, we definitely really appreciate your willingness and to meet with us. And I mean, super exciting, obviously, as filmmakers ourselves. It's just amazing to meet someone in the industry like yourself with such a great movie as well.
100%.
All right, so let's hop right in. Welcome to NCOT, the podcast. In this podcast, we talk about movies from almost like an insider's perspective, and we love watching films and just reviewing them, but also talk about like filmmakers' life. So in the past, we've done what it is like to be on set and film school and whatnot. So that's
Yeah,
kind of like where we started. And so, I mean, right now we're just starting to do interviews with people within the industry, which is really exciting. And you are the first one to come in with us. So once again, thank you so much for that. If you would like to
awesome.
introduce yourself and your movie for those who haven't watched it.
Yeah, my name is Bryce McGuire. I am the writer and director of Night Swim, which came out in 2024 January with Blumhouse, Atomic Monster, Universal Studios releasing. And right now I'm in a kind of a public place, so it's a little bit loud in the background. Hopefully, the background chatter isn't too distracting. I heard someone making a drink back there, so uh, if it's too loud, just give me the and cut, and we'll reset.
Not loud at all for sure.
Okay, good.
So, Bryce, this movie, Night Swim, came out in 2024, but you actually have a short that came almost 10 years ago. Obviously, as you might know, in film school, we make a lot of short films, and many of those short films are concept films that we eventually want to turn into feature films. So, what was the process of making that short film like? Like, what did you make it for? What was your idea with the film, and how do you go about making it?
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming a lot of people that are listening to this or watching this are going to be fellow filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers like both of you are.
For
So
sure.
maybe I'll just back up and give even just a little bit more context because it may be helpful. So I went to grad school at the American Film Institute in LA. I graduated in 2013, and then you have that kind of moment of like, oh right, I did it. I'm out of grad school. I have $100,000 in debt. Oh boy, that kind of what now moment, right?
For sure.
For me, I think it was kind of looking at around and being like, what movies are getting made for younger filmmakers or first time filmmakers, right? What types of genres? Pretty quickly, you get to horror, right? So many filmmakers came up through genre under the Roger Corman school. Um, whether that's Spielberg doing Dune or Cameron doing Piranha or whatever it is. Like you've got a lot of different examples of people kind of like getting the experience, cutting their teeth in horror. And for me, the other part was like it can't just be that. In the Venn diagram overlap of what is getting made and what are you actually into, right? If you're trying to just fake something, you don't actually like that, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. It's not going to benefit you. People have tried. You can always kind of tell. And so for me, there was like in that Venn diagram overlap, there was a certain type of horror film that I saw was starting to get made at the time. This was kind of like that mid or early teens kind of horror renaissance that was happening where these art house films like the A24 films, The Witch and It Follows and The Babadook and The Lighthouse and Hereditary was about to come out. I was like, oh man, there's like a really interesting movement in horror that I want to be a part of that because I see that it's psychological sometimes or it's atmospheric, it's character driven, it's psychology's there, it's creative performances. And the kind of the films that always inspired me were like The Shining and things that, you know, beyond just the horror of it, there's this other like level of like character drama and character psychology that's kind of driving the scares, driving the tension. So I was like, I want to be doing that. So what did I do? I just said, well, I'm going to start making short films in my apartment for no money, right? The thing that all of us are doing,
For
all of
sure.
us have done or are doing currently or whatever. And so I made a film called The Whistler, which is actually, you can still find that online. It's on YouTube. It made it for, the cost of hard drives and pizza, three people in the crew, really like just no budget, shot in my apartment. Um, And that we put that up online for Halloween, and it actually ended up doing really well. It like kind of like went viral in Mexico and kind of got on a bunch of blogs and just like kind of blew up. Not crazy, not like Lights Out Sandberg blew up, but like a modest like 500,000 views somewhat quickly, and you're like, okay, like that worked, that reached an audience, at least put that way. And then you're like, okay, well that was great, like that helped me get signed to an agency, right? So that short film with also 3 other scripts I had written was all the things that they needed to actually be like, all right, we'll sign you, right? But the short film, I will say, was a very important part of that. And it was validation. Like, I loved that process. I loved making that short film. I'm so proud of that short film. And audiences wanted that short film to exist. They liked it, right? It's like, okay, I got to do that again, get better, make another one, level up a little bit, right? And that's where Night Swim came in. So that was my second kind of like intentional genre film, intentional genre short film. I had done a bunch of other stuff in the past, but it's like you're an undergrad and you're kind of like trying a little this and trying a little that and experimenting, and that's what you should be doing. I would actually recommend you experimenting a bit. But for me, like, we want to level up. So Rod and I, we got like $10,000 basically that we like raised through like a friend as an investor. Like a friend of a friend of a friend, to be honest. It was just kind of like found someone who had money and was like, hey, would you let us do this thing? Here's the script, and here's my previous short film. And so basically, yeah, we shot that kind of knowing with two objectives. I'll put it this way. One objective was wanted to have another sample that showed more professional production value, just a better craft, a better control over the tools, right? Which requires more money, which required us to raise money. The second thing was like, yeah, like we had just seen, Sandberg and Lights Out sell the new line, and that get turned into a movie that did really well, and just could kind of feel that like there was an appetite for the proof of concept short as a way to open up a door. And we had, we needed doors to be open. We didn't have really any doors open to us. We're like, well, if we make a short like Sandberg did, we can, get it through. And so we were right, but we weren't prepared. Like, we made a short film that was like, yeah, this could be a movie, but it was really kind of vague in our minds of like, we did it kind of to make the short because we thought it was like spooky and fun and an environment that we had not seen like focused on, like a scary backyard pool. We'd seen different scenes in movies, but hadn't seen the whole thing built around that. But then here's what happened. People saw it, people liked it. And then people were like, where's the feature? And then we're like, yeah, the feature, right? Good question. We did not think that far. So I would say for anyone that's like, yeah, proof of concept, you better have that concept fleshed out because you're going to lose tons of momentum. And so we were really, that was kind of a blunder on our part to not be prepared to immediately follow that goodwill with the pitch for the movie. So kind of basically 3 years passed of people being like, the short's really good. Is there a feature? And I just kind of was like, for the longest time, and I've said this in other interviews, so pardon if you've heard that, but I really was like, for like 3 years, I was like, I could only see the bad version that like only just had like ghosts going boo in a pool for an hour and a half. I'm just like, I just don't care. I just don't want to make that movie. To me, the big discovery was like what the pool could give you, and that there's this Faustian bargain to it. And there's actually like a real character in a real family that has something to gain from this pool that's attached to their identity and attached to their like well-being, attached to their happiness as a family, and kind of has this kind of a little like microcosm of the American dream, this version of your life that you think you desperately need to like be good, to be happy, to be stable, right? And I think it was not until like uncovering like the Ray having MS former baseball player storyline, which is not like intuitive. Like if you saw the short film, you'd be like, what? Baseball?
Right.
What are you talking about? Right. It's like, but for me, it was like baseball, swimming, like the backyard swimming pool. Like, I don't know. They all felt like kind of like symbols of like very familiar, nostalgic American kind of things that I could kind of weaponize. Like I could use the baseball comeback story as a way to suck the audience in because we're so conditioned to like root for the comeback story. I was like, ooh, if I can get them rooting for the comeback story, I can lure them in. And by the time they realize the cost of that comeback story, it's too late because the damage has been done and they're already in danger, right? So that was kind of like the sneaky way of like using really familiar archetypes and subgenres to kind of combine them. It was once I found that I was like, okay, now I think I can see the movie. Now I'm going to go in and pitch this movie and write my 15-page treatment with have images and references and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then pretty quickly after that, we sold it to James Wan, right? So I'm probably giving you too much information, but this is like the big snapshot of like everything that led up to Night Swim and then that followed Night Swim. And then, as you know, there was a 5-year period of like development where like went from New Line to Blumhouse to thought it was dead, then it came back to life, and that's its own kind of like drama. But started with the short, not being prepared to follow up with it with the feature, having to find that idea, and then finally finding the right partner to make that film.
No, I'm definitely really glad that you mentioned it, because my next question was, I know you've mentioned in the past how the short film was more of a concept of the pool as a whole, not necessarily a storyline.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Obviously in Night Swim, we have a big story with the comeback and the family and then the new house and whatnot. So I was going to ask you what the process was of extrapolating the story from a concept of a pool, which you kind of answered already.
Yeah, that's basically, I mean, that's really what it was. It was just spending time with it. It was also a friend of mine getting sick and getting diagnosed with MS that was like really put that on my mind. So sometimes it's just that like life has to kind of happen, right? And as a writer, our job is to kind of like pay attention, right? And be like sensitive to real things that are happening. That friend Dan also went on to work on the feature for Night Swim, was one of the editors. So it was cool to kind of, and he like consulted on the script and got to weigh in on it and like, you know, take a really difficult experience and kind of help turn it into like art and to turn into something that people can relate to and whatever. So like life had to kind of happen for the idea to be there. It wasn't a matter of beating your head against a wall for 3 years. It was like, you're working on other stuff. You're just kind of keep in the back of your mind and you're kind of trying different things. And then suddenly when you know.
Awesome. And then on the technical side, what is it like pitching to studios like Blumhouse, which, as you know, big on horror and everyone loves them for the horror films they make. What is it like pitching to them and what is the process of that?
Yeah, so I didn't actually pitch to Blumhouse. I first pitched to Atomic Monster, James Wan's company, and other studios that were kind of interested. Blumhouse was not in the initial they were not in the initial kind of tour with that or meeting schedule with that. But generally what that's like is, you know, your agent will send a proof of concept or a short film or whatever. And they'll say, hey, this is a short film that is, you know, hope is to expand this into a feature. They'll kind of set that framework so that because sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just a directing sample, right? But if it's a proof of concept, they'll tell them that. They'll send it to producers and studios, wherever it's going out to. And then basically if they like it, they'll be like, okay, like I want to hear a pitch. So what we did was, it was a verbal pitch that was probably about 20 to 30 minutes. And then there was also an outline that we were like left behind. That was like, look, here's the kind of like, and it would have images in it, as I mentioned, that kind of gives them a feeling for the movie. And they can also then sit with it on kind of on the page. Sometimes you'll only do verbal and you won't do a leave behind. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. It kind of depends on the project, but I wanted them to be able to see the movie in a written form and be like, I can look at this, I can sit with this, I can be reminded of like a detail that maybe I didn't catch or maybe I forgot in the verbal pitch, but I spent time with the outline. And I think the images were helpful too. It's such a visual, horror is so visual, right, as a medium. So I think the images helped, you know, and we did some like Photoshop of like, you know, looking up at what should be a pool that's right above you and suddenly it's 50 feet the disc, like stuff like that, just to give like the feeling of what that would be like. So that was kind of the process for us, just a short film, verbal pitch, and then an outline that accompanied that.
Yeah. And the visual effect that you mentioned is just so remarkable in the film, I think.
Really
and it kind of ties into the next question that we have. So in the short film, you have a lot of like practical effects. And what decisions had to be made going into a feature film like Night Swim in the aspect of like special effects versus practical effects and makeup and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, so you have a bigger budget, you have more to work with, and some things I knew were going to have to be a visual effects. Now, the we'll use that as an example, the dark water kind of perspective, looking up at the surface of the pool. So those were both shot elements, practical elements. So we shot like an aperture of the pool that had the right kind of glowing water and had the right like water consistency, and then we shot the plate of Eve like from behind, like looking up at it, and then we just basically comp those two together. So it's actually like a very simple kind of visual effect job. It wasn't like we were building that whole world
Hmm.
strictly in CG, the way like Aquaman, for instance, is like that's almost all built in CG. Um, yeah, it was kind of like what are the simple in camera things that we can do to, and then how do we then use those to kind of create that bigger world? So that and a lot of those were kind of for instance with the some of the ghouls and like the kind of drowned specters in the water. It was a place called Fractured Effects, which did the Conjuring movies, and they worked with James Wan a ton in the past. Um, and so we created these kind of prosthetic creatures, that would be like a guy like in a bloated man kind of fat suit, right? And it'd have like all the kind of dappling in the skin and the bulging eyes. And then what you typically do, and a lot of people take this path. Talk to Me, for instance, use the same technique. You're shooting something practically in practical special effects, but then you're like sweetening it in visual effects. So for us, it was like the rubber was not shining the way that a human eye does, right? You're just not getting that feeling of like that wetness, that kind of stickiness.
Mhm.
And we wanted to be a little more like messed up in certain places, more deteriorating. And it's hard to do that practically because it starts falling apart and there's different things that go wrong. So we did a real creature that we then just like enhanced with visual effects, kind of comping stuff in and kind of getting that shine right. And kind of like frame by frame, like kind of almost painting in that next level of detail that just gives it that. Like for instance, one of my favorite moments, kind of visual effects moments, are just creepy moments in the movie. Is after the girl Izzy gets her foot grabbed at the end of Marco Polo and she kicks loose and your camera's looking down and the bubbles are kind of trailing out.
That was
I
amazing.
wanted that, which just like you feel him like drifting back into the dark and just like, oh God. I wanted the eyeballs to have the same kind of size and kind of spectral highlights as the bubbles. So basically, they almost become camouflage within the bubbles as you kind of drift back. And that's something that you just can't control that practically because the bubbles are being you're shooting real bubble assets, but then you're enhancing them, you're cloning them, you're reworking them, and then with that guy drifting back, you know, you just can't get that exact right shine. And then was like our whole mission was like we want him to almost disappear into the bubbles where his eyes almost become like two bubbles drifting back. And I
Mhm.
think it really captured that effect. I just like make my skin crawl. That's the type of thing that VFX is really, really good at. If you have a very specific idea for something, you want to have like micro level control, visual effects can be your best friend in that case. But we tried to shoot as much practical as we could, and we shot in real pools, we shot in real water. Um, Almost every VFX shot has some element of practical photographed, photography to it.
No, that's amazing. I want to ask specifically, how did you make the one in the with the girl hiding behind the pool flap?
Good question. So we actually we built a facade. So we literally
Mm,
built the edge of a pool that was on like speed rails off the edge of the real pool. So there was like a gap behind it. So you could, and it was long. It was like 9 feet long. So you could actually put the camera in like a medium wide shot and not see the edge of the facade, but it was actually sticking out like 4 feet, like real pool, fake pool. And there was a performer inside that. And then it was just kind of like covered on top to have like light enclosure. Um, but that was so fun because I was like, how do we do this? And then you're just kind of problem solving. Like, well, like you basically just are recreating the side of a pool. You can put someone behind, and then you can put the camera back there, and you can shoot back. And but yeah, that was very simple actually. But it just one of those things that, for me, not having worked on a big studio film or a small studio film, but still like a big proper budget, you kind of don't know what's even capable, like what's possible. So in my mind, I'm thinking so indie and so DIY. I'm like, how do we do this? How do we cheat? They're like, yeah, we'll just build a pool, like a fake pool front. I was like, of course, it's brilliant. Like that's the best. Like, so that is the amazing thing about getting to jump up into doing like a wide release movie with these amazing craftspeople and artists, is that you end up learning so much, and even things that you never would have thought of on your own. Like you're working with the best, and you ends up becoming like such a educational process of like what you can really do, both in visual effects and stunts. I mean, stunts was a huge thing. I'd never worked with a stunt performer or stunt coordinator before, or stunt performers, and like someone getting like smacked across the floor or something. Like there's just a real process for how to do that, and it's safe, and it's fun, and it's kick ass, and it's just like I think even like midway through production, I was kind of realizing like, oh, you can do that. Like you can do that. Like you can throw someone into a wall and you build a fake breakaway wall that's gonna like collapse and the drywall is gonna crumble. Like that's not that hard of a thing to do. You're like, okay, like here we go. I think on the next one, I'll be even more just aware of the tools that you have to play with, and probably I think I'll be able to push things even further, because so much of me as really like a first time feature director was kind of just adapting and learning on the job. It's what you're doing, and feel very, very lucky and grateful to be able to learn on the job. And yeah, I'd done a bunch of short films that had done well and played festivals, but it's not the same. It's not the same as having all those people and resources and tools to work with. And now I know. Now I know what you can actually do.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Just want to ask you really quick. So we are big horror film fans, and we watch them every week. So there is a horror film that's coming out today, Imaginary, in which you also worked on as a writer. What is it like having your first horror feature film, and in the same year having another production going on? So what is the balancing like?
Yeah.
How does it feel?
It feels awesome. It's actually the third film that's come out this quarter, because I wrote a film called Baghead with Freya Allen from The Witcher and in the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes movie, and it's released. It's in theaters right now in the UK and Europe, because it was a German based production, but it's Studio Canal. But it's another horror short film. It's another horror feature based on a short film with a really great director, Alberto Corredor. And so it's been weird. It's like I had 3 movies that have been out in theaters in the last 3 months. I'm just like, what is going on? You know what it is though? It's the result of a lot of work. And about 3 years ago, I had kind of been in this moment where I was like, I'd sold stuff, I'd written stuff for studios, I'd done stuff on assignment, I'd adapted books, I'd adapted short films into features. I'd gotten like I'm a working screenwriter, which is like amazing. Like it's a dream come true. Pinch myself. Like I'm like a working screenwriter in Hollywood. I'm in the WGA. I have insurance. This is the best thing ever. And I was like, this is so great. The next thing I'm so focused on doing is getting movies made, produced, released into the world. Because I really think that's a typical thing of like, first off, it's about people just kind of like knowing your work, which is by writing a really good spec, making a really good short film. And that's one level. The next level is getting paid professionally to work on stuff, right? You're now a professional storyteller, professional writer. The next step is I'm a filmmaker, meaning I've made films. Films have been made, have been shot, have been produced, have been released. And that's a much harder level to get to. And that was like really being strategic, like what projects I took, just pushing stuff over the line and doing my own stuff, writing for other people. But it really feels like the culmination of like a 3-year period of very intense work, and very like that was my goal. My goal was like in this year, I want to have a couple things actually made and released into the world. So it does feel amazing to have 3 films out there, and then you know what the next level is? The next level is like I got 3 things made. They both had varying degrees of success. Like Night Swim is done good business. It's now like at 55 million on a $15 million budget, so it's done good business, but it's not been like the mega breakout hit. It's gotten good reviews, it's gotten bad reviews, it's been a more mixed and more negative than I kind of would hope for and thought. I'm like, that's okay. You can't control that. The people who like it are going to like it, and the people that don't, you have to kind of let go of that. But I think for me, my next step is just like, you know, make an even better movie. Just keep pushing yourself. That was your first feature film, and it got through the gauntlet and got released on a mass scale with Universal's marketing behind it. And like, I have to like give myself grace and appreciate how big of a deal that is, but also know that like that was just my first attempt, and like I can do better. I can even do better. And just trying to keep pushing yourself. You can't control the results, but you can control the way that you take the lessons that you learned and put that into making an even better film. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where my head is at. Like, I'm so proud of Night Swim, and I love that it's connected so many people, but also I kind of like know what we were up against in that movie, with the strikes happening at the same time, and like not being able to do any additional photography, not being able to really address anything from the test screenings. It was rough. It was a rough process. Our hands were really tied in so many ways. And like, you see things in the, reviews, whatever, it's like, literally I had that scene, but like, what are you gonna do? You just have to kind of like stand by the movie that you made and know that you made the best possible movie in the crazy circumstances that were thrown at you, like crazy circumstances. And be grateful, learn, and keep getting better. That's it.
No, I definitely want to congratulate you for all the work that you did. I think it all came out amazing, and we'll be watching every single movie that you put out there. What is one thing that you would say to aspiring filmmakers that you've learned from your experience?
Let me give a really practical piece of advice to start with, and then I'll give something that's more like Mr. Rogers. Practical piece of advice. If you're going to make a short film, make a short film, meaning it should be short. Because if you make a 20-minute short film, it literally has to be 3 times as good as the 7-minute short film that they're going to try and program. There's a finite amount of time, and it's just math. It's like, my film's 20 minutes. It's got to be 3 times or at least twice as good as a 10-minute film. So when you're first starting out, don't give yourself that burden. Like, it doesn't mean it has to be like a 3-minute leading up to one jump scare. It can be that, but also just it's a short film. It should be designed and structured to build toward one memorable moment that's going to stick with an audience. And short is better. Short is your friend. Short film. So I always tell people that, because I get these scripts and like 25-page short films. Like, what are you doing? Don't do this to yourself. Just make it easy on yourself. It's hard enough. There's enough competition out there without giving yourself that thing. Now, someone's going to be like, yeah, but like, screw you. This film has to be 25 minutes. And you know what? If you're right, you're right. Mm-hmm. So the people that have like a really clear vision for something, and can pull it off, they're not going to listen to me anyway. And maybe that's okay. So I'm just saying, if it's strategically just purely on that level, you're going to help yourself in making a short film short. Second thing I would say is make sure that you are reading and watching a lot of really good stuff, because I think sometimes we get kind of like in our little like bubble of like what we like watching. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, like, as you get into the actual like film industry, like the Russo brothers or something, those guys, they know Fellini and Kieślowski and Charlie Chaplin, and they're snobs. They also love Terminator 2. Mm-hmm. They also love Die Hard. Mm-hmm. They also love like the classics of that. They also love Alien. They also love Jaws. They also love, Society or some obscure horror thing. Like, I just think that sometimes we get a little bit in our own boxes, and I'm guilty of the same thing. What's up, man? Sorry, I'm like having
Very
traffic
good.
passing. Don't want to distract me. But we're all guilty, but we get in our own little like feedback loop, right? I really, really think that no matter what genre you're making, it really benefits you to expose yourself to the best of other genres. Like, I'm just like, I'm not a romantic comedy person, but you better have watched When Harry Met Sally. You better have watched that. Like, don't play yourself. That's gonna come up in a conversation with some studio exec at Sony or whatever, and you're gonna look like a dummy. You're gonna look like you're not serious if you have not seen the greats within each genre. So I always just and read, if you're a writer, read great scripts. You have no excuse. You can find these scripts online anywhere. Like, go read High Noon, go read Alien, go read the classics, right? I'm always, because it gets harder. The further you get along the business, the less bandwidth you have just be like reading scripts. But if you're younger and just getting started, just read everything, watch everything, like go deep on everything, because that's going to benefit you in ways you can't even predict. It might be like, oh, like, yeah, I'm writing this like movie, a horror movie set like on a deep space station, but I was just watching When Harry Met Sally, and suddenly I'm thinking about the way that they jump in time. Like, hold on a second. What if the structure of my film, it doesn't have to do with the romantic, it's a structural thing. In that movie, they go 3-year jump, 5-year jump. And now I'm jumping in forward in time on this spaceship. And every time we reset, I'm like, wait, what's that fungus growing on the wall? Why are all these people dead? What happened in that 3-year time jump? Now I want to know. I'm leaned in, right? So that's a pulled out of my ass, but that's an example of how you being tuned into multiple genres outside of your own can actually trigger an idea that actually feels super fresh in your genre. Because I think everyone's pulling from the same jump scares from James Wan, including me, by the way, a little bit, to be just totally fair. But you know what? Like, where's the technique that actually comes from some totally unexpected movie? Like, there was this documentary, and they do this crazy cut to this thing that happens. I'm just like, whoa, what if that was actually the spark of an idea for like a jump scare in a horror movie? I'm just saying, like, there's just I just think that, like, if we look outside of our box a little bit, the ideas will actually get fresher and won't feel so like copy paste and so recycled. Because I think we tend to have a little bit of a problem in like mainstream genre world. We're doing the same gags again and again, and everyone's kind of ripping each other off. And like, I'm guilty of this too at times. But anyway, that's my hoorah moment of like, look elsewhere. And the third thing I'll give you this. I knew to ask for 3, but I'm gonna leave you at 3. I really truly believe, and everyone says this, but I just have found it to be so true. If you're chasing a trend or chasing I don't know, chasing something that worked for someone else, and if you don't really believe it or connect with it, I promise you, people are going to smell it. It's not going to feel real. It's going to feel just plastic. I don't know, man. It's hard to put your finger on why, but I believe that so strongly. Like, I can just smell it. I can just feel it. And smart people can feel it too. If you're doing something that's like, I live this, I'm obsessed with this, this is personal to me, I deeply care about this, like, you feel that too. And the truth, people are willing to forgive. They're willing to forgive some technical inexperience. They're willing to forgive some fumbles and missteps if they're like, but man, like, I can just feel like the beating heart of this. I can just feel like someone understands this world. Like, you worked on a lobster fishing boat in Alaska for a summer, you better be writing that movie. Because how many people have done that? How many people have written, how many people have worked, actually smelt those fish, got their hands cut on the ropes, talked with the crazy people that are also working the boat with you, had the weird drunken night in the port in Juneau, Alaska. Like, whatever that is, man, like, that's the good stuff. That's the stuff that's going to distinguish you from everyone else, because everyone wants to do this job and people are pretty good at like imitating. But to me, the things that actually got me like work and on the map were like weirder type shit, more personal, more idiosyncratic. And then they'll be like, okay, like, you've got this like voice, this vision. Okay, now like, we'll hire you to sprinkle a little bit of that magic pixie dust on our like lame ass movie. Now, that's a little cynical, but that's kind of how that goes for real. Like it kind of is. Like people have they have Chat GPT, especially as AI becomes an increasingly skilled at reproducing and assimilating mass data and can watch every single horror movie and then come up with a new jump scare based on the swimming pool. As soon as AI gets better and better at that, it's going to be more important for us as humans, as non-robot creators, to be human, to make mistakes, to follow, be even illogical, but they're just something that's like so compelling about like, I'm just obsessed with this thing. It's coming from such a specific place. It defies logic a little bit. It's not the cleanest thing, but I'd rather watch like an auteur fail than watch someone that just like is copying someone else succeed. Truthfully, I would. So I think like the what is it, the paleocortex is the part of the brain that basically like AI is not good at, because the paleocortex is basically what allowed someone to first look at a berry as a cave person and say, yeah, this may kill me, but it looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and eat this. Why not? Whereas a robot would say, no data on object A, will not consume for self-preservation of species. And humans are like, I'm kind of curious though. Yeah, like I'm gonna go ahead and try it. I'm gonna go ahead and eat this. Like, cause like, what if it's like a kiwi and it rules?
Right.
But 3 other people died, right? So I think that's, as humans, it's taking risks, it's making mistakes, it's being flawed, and being brave.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Bryce, for everything. And thank you so much for, again, your willingness to being here. Where can people follow you and follow your work and what you've been doing right now?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mainly at Bryce J McGuire, BRYCEJ McGuire. It's McGuire. I always posting new stuff there, and I actually have a new short film that is also being turned into a feature that is called Every House is Haunted. It's being released on Short of the Week.
With South by Southwest?
South by Southwest Short. It's being released online finally by Short of the Week on March 14th. That'll be out in the world. So check that out. It's a little bit different, but it's really fun and quirky and spooky and emotional. And I hope people dig that. And that's being turned into a feature with Mark Johnson, who produced Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Holdovers, and many other things. He's producing that. So it's me going a little bit smaller and a little bit weirder, but I'm excited to make that movie following Night Swim. So yeah, find me there. Say what's up. And if you've not seen Night Swim because you listen to Rotten Tomatoes, come on, sheeple. Watch it for yourself. Watch it for yourself, and you find out. You find out if you don't like it, you don't like it. But there's more. It is not a soulless cash grab. I can tell you that. It is coming from a very personal, emotional place. And wherever it fails, wherever it succeeds, there's a real filmmaker behind that and a group of filmmakers behind that. So I just say, like, walk around and find out. Try it for yourself. Rent it anywhere you can. It's available everywhere. Still in some theaters, but largely moved into the digital space. So go write it. Go watch it, and write me on Instagram and tell me what you thought.
Awesome. Bryce, if you'll do us the honor, we do this little thing at the end of our episodes in which we go and cut and clap. If you will do that for us, we'd be honored.
I will absolutely do that. This is Bryce McGuire. I've loved having this conversation with both of you. And on that note, and cut.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Bryce. Perfect timing.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy talking with you.
Later.
Okay.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Ciao.